Hey again, everybody out there in YouTube land. Hopefully this will be the last setup or change up video for the Jazzmaster. I'm going to be changing out the pick guard. I don't like the feel of the anodized aluminum, and I really honestly don't like the look. I think the gold clashes with the seafoam green sparkle. So I had the folks at Decoboom make me up a black cream with these cool engravings. I think that'll look a lot nicer. And because this is plastic and this is aluminum, they also sent me, because I paid for it, aluminum shield for the underside. Now you notice that it has two holes here, and that's on purpose because if you look at the stock location of the pickup switch, it's right there, and on the replacement pick guard, it's moved in quite a bit. It's actually up 3/4 of an inch from the stock location and then back 1/2 of an inch because, and the reason is, and I'll show you this once we get it open just to remind you, the selector here goes basically forward and backward, and I am so used to having a 3-way toggle be up here on the upper bout and go up and down towards the player, towards the floor. I have a Telecaster Deluxe that's like that. I've had 2 or 3 of those in my life. I've had a couple of Les Pauls, and I just cannot get used to this forward and backward switch. So I'm gonna dig up a black tip for it. I'm gonna be swapping out these knobs to some black knobs, and that I think will also bring the aesthetic together a little bit. I'm gonna try not to replace the strings since, I just don't wanna be wasteful. But there's a possibility that they might have to come all the way off, and if they do, then I'll just put new strings. Strings are cheap. Here we go. You don't need a lot of tools to do something like this. The pots themselves are smooth shaft instead of split shaft, so they don't have the knurled slots on them for a press fit knob, so they have to have a set screw to keep the knob in place. And all you need to get those off is a small flathead screwdriver, of which I have here. I don't know if you can see it quite, but I've actually filed the corners of the screwdriver down just a little bit to make sure that it fits into those tiny spots. Of course, you need a Phillips head screwdriver to get all of the various screws off. There's all the pickguard screws themselves, and then the screws 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 for the rhythm circuit controls. And then this is a cool little, this is a flat wrench that has a 1/2 inch spot on one end, and then on the other end it has a 14mm. So the 1/2 inch will fit the volume and tone pots, and the 14mm will fit the pickup switch. Now you notice it doesn't have the round nut with the serrations on the edges like a true Les Paul would, or at least a vintage Les Paul. So that's why this tool will work. You might remember that I used the Custom Shop branded toolkit that came with the guitar to do all the work in the last videos. That's up in my gig bag now, and my gig bag is not here. And I guess one more thing I should tell you is that I'm trying to move the pickup selector switch without, you know what, I'm going to leave those two in until I get the knobs off. Let's just take the knobs off right now. Knob number 1. Knob number 2, and then these should, yeah, that's bent in just a little bit. That wrench has had a little bit of a hard life, I suppose. And the 14mm end should fit the jack. It does not, but the 1/2 does. And then the 14mm will fit the switch. And sometimes you have to take the tip off to get the nut off, but not this time. And that's got a washer. These do not have washers. And the output jack has a washer as well. Take the bridge off and make sure I lay it down in the correct configuration so I don't have to remember which way it went on. I can just put it right back the way it came off. And then when I get up towards the rhythm circuit, I'll undo those screws before I undo the pickguard screws. Hopefully I can move the pickup switch and rotate it in the cavity without having to unsolder any of the contacts. But I have a new tip on my soldering iron because the old one, I don't know what was going on with it. It just didn't work very well. So now I'm going to take these screws off, and I'm going to set these down in the order that I took them off. Maybe that's off camera, maybe it's not, because I don't want to get them mixed up in case it matters. No, that's a pickguard screw. So that one doesn't matter, which means that it's just these two holding on the L bracket. And I guess I should have known that because it is, after all, folks, an L bracket. But I can also give you a look at the rhythm circuit too, components, probably better than in the first video that I did where I showed what was under the pickguard. And I can already see one tiny problem, and that is because these screws are beveled at the tip and the holes for them are countersunk, but in the new pickguard, these holes are not, the holes for those screws are not countersunk. That is all the screws. So we're gonna pop this up. Oh, and look at that. It does have a separate, it has a separate shield, which I was not expecting. I was expecting it to only have this, to be perfectly honest. This is the 50s style. And I'm expecting a slight tone change from this, putting the new pickguard on, because it's less, frankly, it's just less metal. And it may have an increase, a little increase in noise as well. So you can see here that there's another, or what looks like a serial number or a manufacturing mark of some sort in here. And I think I will be able to move the switch with no problem to get it to go up and down and fit into the hole. I may have to bend the wires a little bit. And then here you can see the rhythm circuit a little better. Hopefully that's on camera. These are mini pots and they say CTS. They have a date code, a pretty run-of-the-mill cap on there. It looks like this may be the only piece of wiring anywhere on the guitar that's not cloth. This is just a regular old heat shrink. It says 1 meg on the volume, 50K on the tone. The thumb wheels also have set screws. I don't know if you can see those, so that if you need to, you can take those off. The new pickguard is made by Decoboom. So thanks to Andrew. I don't know if Andrew has a team. It might just be Andrew. But thanks to Andrew for giving me the slight customization that I asked for. I know that that can be a pain in the neck sometimes. So anytime a builder is willing to do that, I'm happy about it. I put one of these, one of his very similar style on my Telecaster, and I just love the way it looks. We're just gonna test fit it here, make sure it fits over the pickups and all the holes are in the right places. It looks perfect as expected. All the screw holes are in the right places. So that just speaks to Andrew's capabilities. Fantastic. And I think that looks really great, just like that. I'm hoping this is conductive shielding paint and not just black paint. I don't know why they would paint it with just paint. That doesn't really make sense. And then you can see here, if you can see it, there's a tiny, tiny thin wire going to the thimble, and that helps ground the whole thing when the bridge is in there and the strings are on the bridge. If you're doing this kind of thing, be very careful of that wire. If you remember, there was also a wire under the bridge plate, or the tremolo plate, excuse me. Again, am just absolutely blown away by the quality of this build. If you remember the Squier Bass VI I video where I showed you the channel, the Jaguar style channel where the wiring goes and how rough and just frankly terrible that looked. Just the quality of the workmanship was so poor. It got the job done, but it looked absolutely terrible. And this is the complete opposite of that, which is what you would expect from a Fender Custom Shop instrument. This looks inside exactly the way I thought it would. So I'm gonna take a couple minutes here to get the plastic off of this. As I discovered with the one on my Telecaster, they carve or engrave or whatever the process is, the decorations with the plastic sheet on. I have to peel the plastic off of the inside of each thing, and the screw holes will interrupt it a little bit. So it's really kind of comical, to tell you the truth. It'll just take a few minutes, and I'll give you a little bit of for those of you that need to see it, I'll give you a little bit of plastic peeling here. So here you can see I got one of the little channels there. This stuff sticks to your fingers really well. It's kind of funny. I don't know what it is about a new guitar or a new pickguard. Peeling the plastic off is definitely one of my favorite things to do. It just feels like you're really getting into it. And then you just kind of look at it in the light, angle it, see if you got all the pieces, and I think I did. So what we're gonna do, first of all, is get the switch in place. Notice now it flips up and down. I'm gonna put the nut and the washer on, but only lightly, because I may have to adjust the orientation of the shield to get everything else lined up properly. So I don't want to put it on super tight right now, and I'll do that in just a second. So sorry, I know this is cutting out some of the light, but I need to be able to get in here and work these parts into place. So we'll do the output jack next, since it's farthest away from the switch. And we will do the tone and volume pots. And then after those are done, we'll get the rhythm circuit components into place. And then once the rhythm circuit components are in place, I'll tighten down the rest of I'll tighten down all these nuts. This might be just a tiny bit thicker than the anodized one. Okay, and I'm just gonna hold that and get the screw started, and then the other screw started. And the hole is deep enough that you can kind of just drop the screw in there and let it fall into place, and then kind of tighten it up. Now we're gonna do the L bracket for the thumb wheels. It's a little fiddly, but it's not bad. I mean, this is one of the easiest things you can do on a guitar with a pickguard, is swap out the pickguard. Typically just takes, as you saw, it only takes a couple of different tools, 3 in our case because of the knobs with the set screws. Okay, now before I tighten those rhythm circuit screws down, I'm gonna make sure that the thumb wheels turn fully freely. So rotate it all the way forward is 10. Let's get that. Oh, that feels like something's hooked up. Yeah, there's a wire in there. It's not quite under where it should be. All right. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to tighten the screws on the rhythm circuit the rest of the way down. Not gorilla tight, because these are supposed to be countersunk, and they're not. They're kind of sitting on the surface. So I want them to kind of bed in, but I don't want them to break through. I don't want to just spin this. I want to hold the switch while I'm spinning it. So I want to get this oriented for full up and down, and then I'm going to hold it in position while I tighten that. And that is perfectamundo. I'm going to do the same thing with the pots. I'm going to hold them while I tighten them. I'm going to finish tightening them with my fingers. That way they don't spin, and they aren't going to turn the wires. They're not going to damage any of the wiring, but you do kind of have to hold them firmly. And one of the nice things about this kind of wrench is if it does happen to scratch your pickguard at all, which it shouldn't unless you're being an absolute gorilla, it will hide the tiny scratches that you've put on there under the knobs. Okay, so those are all good. Let me get these back in place. Wow, I think that looks fantastic. I think the black stripe really accentuates the black pickup covers, as well as black tip on the trem bar, and what will soon be black knobs, and then later black switch tip, which I thought I had one, and clearly I was mistaken. Some of the screw holes are not 100% exactly on. You can see the screws are kind of leaning a little bit, but they're close enough, and it's not going to damage the wood. This is ash. This is the stuff they make baseball bats out of. Enough of them are perfectly oriented that the screws are going in nice and straight, and they're going to pull the pick guard to where it's supposed to be. I got an extra screw here. I don't know where it goes. All the other ones are in. Ah, there we go. That is both hunky and dory, and I just think that looks absolutely stunning. I am so pleased with the quality too. I mean, it is absolutely perfect. Andrew and folks at Decoboom, just unbelievable. Now let's get the new knobs out. These are made by Cluson, and there's one marked volume, and there's one marked tone. And let's see if they do indeed fit over the shaft. And we are going to make it so that 10 is straight up. So I want them to be just a tiny bit above the pick guard. So all the way down and up just a little. That way they don't drag. And then tighten the set screw all the way down, up just a little, tighten it. Now these are made for pots with thinner shafts, so the set screw is almost out, but I think that looks nice. Yeah, nice, easy. That is so, that just makes my heart sing right there, having that switch go up and down. So once I replace the switch tip, it will be 100% perfect, looking exactly the way I want it to. Thanks again for checking out the video on the Jazzmaster, swapping the original anodized pickguard with this beautiful piece from Decoboom. I appreciate all their work. I appreciate all your time, and I hope you have time to hit that like and subscribe. Ask any questions or leave any comments. I'm curious, is this something you would do to a custom shop guitar? Would you change it if you got it used and it wasn't didn't look exactly the way you wanted it to when you got it? I mean, I realize I already have, so it's kind of moot for me, but I'm curious what you would do. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate your time, and I hope you have a great next whatever week, weekend, summer, winter, holiday, etc.